Jolteon has just reached number 1 in the world in Gen 9 OU on a team that has shocked everybody. This is really significant because in Gen 9, Jolteon is a ZU ranked Pokemon. This is the lowest possible tier you can be ranked in competitive singles. For some of you that might be surprising to hear because Jolteon does have a decent competitive track record, especially in the very early generations, but in modern times Jolteon is not what it once was. There are faster Pokemon, there are more powerful Pokemon, and the competitive environment is just a little bit more tumultuous for this funny electricity dog. But if you're smart, you would know the universal truth that every dog has its day. Oppenheimer said so, and he's a scientist. He knows what he's talking about. And Jolteon's day has absolutely come here. Punching well above its weight and hitting number 1 on the ladder in Gen 9 OU is a huge achievement here. Let's explore how this happened, what Jolteon is doing in the Gen 9 OU metagame, and how this player has creatively found a way to use an old competitive favorite in modern times. But first I have an emergency news update. The controversial Pokemon Cuptonio has been making significant political strides ever since the hospitalization of Iron Fellow. My intelligence tells me that he has formed a strategic alliance with Tub of Insects, one of the current global superpowers, and aims to overtake the Iron Mugulus regime by force. Has Cuptonio become that which he swore to destroy? Only by subscribing to my YouTube channel can we hope to find any answers to this complex situation. Thank you. Jolteon is a classic competitive Pokemon in my opinion, and one of my personal favorites. And you can view Jolteon as kind of the blueprint for effective special attackers in the future. In early generations, this was an excellent choice, with its incredibly high speed for the time of base 130, and a very solid 110 special attack to boot. In Gen 3, when Jolteon received the ability Volt Absorb, its utility increased, as it could now act as a little bit of counterplay to enemy electric types, such as Raikou and Zapdos, which was incredibly significant. Jolteon was the original fast special attacker, and made great use of its electric stab alongside a hidden power to round out its coverage. Jolteon held onto an OU position through Gen 4 and 5 as well, and even though it's less relevant in those metagames in the modern day, it still has a place. Its high speed and Volt Absorb set it apart from other electric types. But you can't deny that with every passing generation, Jolteon was aging. In Gen 4 and 5 it's barely clinging onto viability, and in Gen 6 it officially drops from OU, as not only are there new, fast Pokemon sort of taking its place, but its effectiveness as a threat is dwindling as the power level around it increases. Jolteon's role of hitting crucial, high-speed benchmarks was kind of invalidated by the addition of Choice Scarf, allowing many Pokemon to achieve those very same speed benchmarks now. And Jolteon's biggest competitor in Gen 4 is probably just Scarf Rotom, who has a superior electric ghost typing, the better ability of Levitate, and a more useful presence overall. Even as a fast electric type threat, Raikou is also more popular in Gen 4. Jolteon also feels kind of weak now, struggling to one-hit anything and often being KO'd back, and having its frailty taken advantage of, as many things get Earthquake or just big neutral hits that KO Jolteon instantly. Other electric types have more viability or more sturdiness in the face of common answers. In Gen 5 OU, Jolteon suffers from many of the same problems, and absolutely hates the presence of Thunderous Therian, another Volt Absorb electric type who may not be as fast but is far more powerful overall, and also matches up incredibly well against Jolteon. Also, one of Jolteon's advantages in earlier generations was that it posed a threat to a lot of common steel types. Skarmory, being steel flying, is of course weak to electric, and many steel types just take big neutral damage, but it really didn't help in Gen 5 when they introduced Ferrothorn, the new best steel type in the game who happens to resist electric and match up insanely well against Jolteon. And Ferrothorn being a central metagame staple in every single game it exists in is dreadful for Jolteon stock. In Generation 6, Mega Manectric is an even faster electric type that also has the ability Intimidate and better offensive tools. Even though Tornadus Therian is a different type, it is not as fast as Jolteon, it was kind of filling that same space of a fast special attacker, while providing your team incredible utility at the same time, with options like Knock Off U-Turn and Defog, as well as more longevity from Regenerator. In Gen 7 it was even harder to justify using Jolteon when Tapu Koko was added to the game, who has the exact same speed as Jolteon but the superior Electric Fairy typing, Electric Surge ability, and just much wider offensive tools and utility. In Generation 8 it felt like Jolteon's chances at viability were slashed completely, as Gen 8 cut the move Hidden Power from the game, which many electric types absolutely relied on for crucial coverage. Without this option, Jolteon was no longer able to threaten ground types consistently, and ground types are of course the main adversaries for electric types. Without this imperative tool, Jolteon's viability plummeted, thus its even lower rating in Gen 9 of ZU, today a mere husk of its former self. If the loss of that crucial hidden power option wasn't enough, the addition of Dragapult was also dreadful for Jolteon stock, as Dragapult is even faster and has far better typing, moveset options, and just about everything that Jolteon used to provide and more. In the modern climate, Jolteon just feels outdated. Dragapult is as good as ever in Gen 9. Iron Valiant is a great, fast offensive threat that achieves incredible speeds with the booster energy item. Darkrai is even legal now, who's only a bit slower than Jolteon and so much more offensively potent. Of course, there is a significant amount of not only fast special attackers but electric types outclassing Jolteon in general. Raging Bolt may be slower, but it is making up for that with its Thunderclap priority move and great dual typing, allowing it to pose more of a threat to more things. And Jolteon's old rival Zapdos is also alive and well, with its crucial Stab Hurricane allowing it to be a rare electric type that can threaten those pesky ground types pretty well, especially because Great Tusk is such a common ground type that happens to be weak to flying. So with this incredible uphill battle Jolteon is facing, how can we explain a Jolteon team reaching number 1 in the world in Gen 9 OU? A metagame that seems so hostile to Jolteon, where there are just far better options than it, and the metagame is also incredibly apt at handling it. Well, the player on Smogon named Let's Rumble Shall We, which is an interesting name, isn't it, did see some potential in Jolteon that perhaps others didn't. Despite all this terrible news for Jolteon Nation, this player realized that amongst the heap of trash and turmoil, there was some diamonds hidden in there, some gems of good news for Jolteon. Electric types like Jolteon are actually incredible abusers of the new terrestrialization mechanic, and there have been a couple examples. In the earlier days, Sandy Shocks was one of the few good electric type special attackers available, and it could use terrestrialization not only to gain a new defensive typing, but gain coverage with the move Terra Blast. Terra Blast, of course, changes type based on your Terra type, and gaining ice coverage or fairy coverage with Stab on it was pretty excellent, turning Sandy Shocks into a much scarier Pokemon than it was otherwise. There was also Regieleki, who was the most infamous example of this. Regieleki, of course, has extraordinarily high speed, the highest speed in the whole game, and this Pokemon was designed in Gen 8 around having no coverage. It basically only has electric moves with a couple exceptions like Ancient Power and Swift, which aren't very good, but Terra Blast kind of breaks this Pokemon, allowing it to overcome its own design flaw and sort of destroy everything with that classic electric ice coverage combination. Terrestrializing in this way is of course a big commitment and a bit of a problem if you rely so heavily on that, but there is good news for Jolteon in particular as an electric type, because they did give Jolteon some good new moveset additions in this game. One of them was Alluring Voice, which is a fairy type special attack with 80 power. It also has the odd effect of confusing the target if they had a stat rise on this turn. I doubt that comes up very often, but what's more important is that this is an actual useful coverage move on Jolteon. This is a good buff because Jolteon's biggest flaw since Gen 8 has been its lack of good coverage. Fairy coverage is pretty significant because you are able to hit the most important target in the game, Great Tusk, for super effective damage. Now, Regieleki and Sandy Shocks were using Terra Blast and a Fairy Terra type just to get Fairy coverage, so Jolteon having this option in its normal moveset is actually pretty massive. Jolteon does get a lot out of terastallizing Fairy, not only because it boosts the power of Alluring Voice, but it allows you to be neutral to incoming hits from ground types and get one over on enemies like Great Tusk or Garchomp. So it helps that unlike other electric types, Jolteon can sort of function in this fast special attacking role without absolutely needing to terastallize, but the option of terastallization is there to push its advantage further. Jolteon also gained the new option of Calm Mind, which is a pretty significant buff too, an actual boosting move that turns this into a win condition, which is great on a Pokemon that's so fast. And we know how great boosting moves are alongside terastallization, don't we? This particular player also noticed that Jolteon has some genuinely useful matchups for the metagame right now. Some things truly never change, because part of the reason Jolteon is desirable here is because it switches in against Zapdos. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, I guess, but this is a useful trick even for modern day. Switching in on Zapdos is great in Gen 9 OU because Zapdos has been rising and rising in popularity. Jolteon still switches directly into those electric moves and is completely safe to do so, and Zapdos using Hurricane as its other form of coverage is no problem because Jolteon resists Hurricane. Zapdos also can't learn Toxic anymore, so the one common option it used to run to catch Jolteon coming in can't happen anymore. And what do you know, Jolteon is also switching nicely into a different version of Raikou, Great Neck. Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is one of the most popular Pokemon in the metagame right now, and this Terra Fairy Jolteon set happens to completely destroy it. You are immune to Electric, and when you Terra Fairy, you are immune to Dragon as well, so Great Neck can't really touch you. Plus, you hit them super effectively. Darkrai is popular, and Darkrai also has some troubles against Jolteon because it's slower, and this Terra Fairy set does get ahead of it, allowing it that Dark Resistance and super effective Alluring Voice. And although you aren't faster than Dragapult, you might bait them to Draco Meteor on your Terra Fairy and strike back with a KO. Zamazenta is another popular Pokemon in the metagame, and Zamazenta does not always run full speed. Even though Zamazenta has a higher base speed than Jolteon, if they happen to be one of the sets that are creeping a bit lower on the speed side, Jolteon can outrun it and get the better of it with Alluring Voice and Terra Fairy if need be. So Jolteon is kind of doing what it always has done, as a fast, offensive threat and pivot with Volt Switch. But it also happens to have these worthwhile good matchups and this Terra Fairy out to not only turn it into a pretty effective win condition with Calm Mind and Stab Alluring Voice, but also to gain incredible defensive typing against the counterplay that it invites from all these Pokemon. That's pretty cool. And Jolteon also happens to pair well with the Pokemon Hydrapple, interestingly. They make a good combo, and this is a creative team choice that I think is cool. One obvious way that they pair well is because Jolteon is a Volt Switch pivot, and Hydrapple has Regenerator. Jolteon, with Volt Switch, is able to find more entry points for Hydrapple to heal up with Regenerator. But they also complement one another defensively. The ground types that might give Jolteon trouble are defeated pretty well by Hydrapple. And Hydrapple will also help you out significantly against Ogerpon Wellspring. Ogerpon Wellspring may think that it lives a hit from Jolteon and strikes back with a massive stab Ivy Cudgel. But Jolteon can simply Volt Switch and go to Hydrapple. And Hydrapple is kind of a great counter to Ogerpon Wellspring. It resists both water and grass. This one has full defense. And if they happen to have the coverage of Play Rough, you are able to tank one and strike back with good enough damage to put them in range of the Jolteon next time. Having Hydrapple by your side makes you feel a little bit better about going for Volt Switches, because yes, ground types can come in, but if they go to a ground type, you got the insanely good Hydrapple switch in. You could throw out some Fickle Beams, go for the big damage, or just regen back all the health you took, and it's a great loop to be in. Eventually their ground type will be worn down, and then Jolteon will start getting incredibly high value Volt Switches that continuously give your team the momentum required to win. I would probably describe this team as something like bulky offense, because it does have some sturdy defensive Pokemon in Hydrapple, Slowking, Galar, and Great Tusk, but All of these sturdy defensive Pokemon have good damage output themselves. They are able to apply pressure and sometimes even wall break. Jolteon, being the fastest Pokemon on the team, is the momentum generator and in some ways the win condition and the late game cleaner. It's doing a lot to actually fit really well on this team. There's a Moltres here who walls enemy ground types well, earns Flame Body Burn, spreads some status to keep chipping the enemy down. And then of course there is the auto-include King Gambit, who is just so good that you have to chuck him on the team. But this is a great breaker to pair with the Jolteon as well, as you can find more entry points for it, Swords Dance opportunities, and opportunities to just spam a dark move and break enemy team. Seeing Jolteon fit on a team and do its old job as well as ever is pretty awesome in 2025 here. And seeing Jolteon actually match up pretty well against many of the Pokemon that have outclassed and replaced it is a little bit poetic, isn't it? These Pokemon must remember that Jolteon walked so they could run. I don't think Jolteon is going to start seeing use on a bunch of competitive teams or anything, but it is very cool to see it thrive on this team and hit as high as number 1 on the ladder as well. Just goes to show that it's a very well thought out team here, and the idea works. Jolteon is playing to its strengths and showing that it still has some merit. It still has some unique tools that these new fast special threats do not have. And I think out of respect for Jolteon and its years of service, why don't we take a look at him in action at the very height of the Gen 9 ladder in current year. What an achievement. Here's Jolteon Hydrapple Pivot Gaming up against a pretty typical looking offense team with the Glamora for hazards, a speedy Iron Valiant, and some sort of Kyurem. Very aggressive looking team that's going to be a tough matchup, but why don't we see how Jolteon Gaming handles this one. A poor start with a Galarian Slowking choice, as Landorus forces that out and gets a free U-turn into Kyurem, putting Hydrapple in an awkward spot. Kyurem gets a devastating Icicle Spear off the back of loaded dice that is threatening a 2-hit KO. King Gambit switches in on the Icicle Spear, resisting it and possibly forcing out Kyurem, but it has to be wary of an Earth Power, and Earth Power could be a problem. Moltres doubles in, but Zapdos is going to force it out. And can we see Jolteon do its job? Yes, Jolteon comes in on the Zapdos and Calm Minds up, going aggressive, are we? In a Thunderbolt Glamora, getting a crucial paralysis, but then activating Red Card. Goodness gracious, forcing it out. I think that was still a great sequence there, as Glamora has gone down and Great Tusk is gearing for a rapid spin opportunity to get those pesky rocks off the field. Will it come to pass? Enemy does have momentum, getting Kyurem in, but Great Tusk staying specifically for this rapid spin opportunity. Knows it can live the Icicle Spear. Okay, actually doesn't even go for rapid spin, goes for body press, going for the KO. Maybe just keeping rocks up and rocking themselves. Our hero here thinks that removing rocks is not necessary, and fair enough, you have multiple boots users, you'd rather just output some offense. KOing that Kyurem was even better. Jolteon comes in, and even though Zapdos has healed, which was a good move, Jolteon is in a pretty commanding position. What will it choose to do? Alluring Voice, chipping down the Landorus with some crucial chip after a rock that is dead to another Alluring Voice, and Jolteon is all of a sudden looking extraordinarily threatening. A very bold stay in right there. Actually, never mind. They were locked into U-turn. Don't mind me. They were locked into U-turn. That's Scarf Landorus too. But still, a great opportunity to get Jolteon in there. Huge flame body burn on the King Gambit. And Jolteon looks outstanding in this endgame. It's able to KO that Landorus Therian. Landorus does outrun it, but it can't lock in without being punished by other teammates. Dodges a Hurricane. My goodness. My goodness. That Hurricane was probably aimed at Jolteon, to be honest. King Gambit trying to come in on Hurricane, but stomachs a Volt Switch instead. Landorus T gonna intim the King Gambit. Will they Sucker Punch to get rid of this final foe for Jolteon? They do not. They exit. Meaning Sucker Punch cannot happen. Static has come into play, which is fair, considering Flame Body activated as well. Bit of tit for tat there. In comes Jolteon. Every dog has its day, they have said. Calm Mind is a good move. Calm Mind is a good move. The confusion, I suppose, is justified because of the good fortune that has happened thus far. Volt Switch clicked and Jolteon is forced out, unfortunately. We see a U-turn come down, of course we do, but Landorus Therian will fall to one more Stealth Rock, so Jolteon might just clean up this end game. King Gambit remains alive amazingly. Landorus Therian falls to the rock. This is quite a game. This is a game, folks. And Jolteon might just be able to come in and win it very soon. Very soon. Ice Beam. Like I said, Slowking Glass so bulky and also does really good damage. The guy. Goodness, doing 59 with an Ice Beam to Zapdos. Volt Switch for pivoting. We have returned to Moltres. Another confusion. It's all over the place, this game. Will the confusion 50-50 hit? No. Flamethrower comes down. Flamethrower does come down. What a nail biter. I feel like Iron Valiant could actually win this, to be honest. Everything's kind of vulnerable to a booster energy Iron Valiant in the end game here. Except maybe the Slowking. But it is paralyzed. The Slowking's paralyzed. Zapdos is also amazingly healing repeatedly. I think it's going to rat out of roosts if it hasn't already. It's got one roost left. We are now... Okay, we're all in on the Iron Valiant here. It does indeed have booster energy. It's going to Terra Ghost and substitute and play for a full para. So it could actually win. It's going to Calm Mind this time. It's going to Calm Mind this time. Will Shadow Ball KO? No, but a full para could happen. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. That was so close. A full para. And this one could have been it, man. But Zap is in... It's kicking off for dear life. But that was the final roost, I believe. I think that was the final roost. I don't think Zap on its lonesome can do this one. I think in a poetic turn of events, Jolteon is going to come in and finish off Zapdos with a Volt Switch to chip it down. Just enough for the final blow. And when you know it, 2025, Jolteon is defeating Zapdos and initiating a forfeit in an unbelievably poetic ending. Zapdos, you cannot escape Jolteon, no matter how many years it has been. Zapdos, you cannot. The Dog Day returns. What a wonderful game. And this was the game that led to the peak rating. A rating of 2078 and a #1 position after this very battle, which was... It's a bit of a messy battle, but it was back and forth, and it almost could have ended in disaster if that Iron Valiant sequence went a different way. But as it stands, the history books will remember this. The history books will remember. We absolutely love to see Jolteon getting one final good run in the books before retirement. Let this dog rest. Let him rest. What do you think, folks? Was this a cool team? I thought it was fantastic. What about you? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you very much for watching.